The message came at dawn. It was short, formal, and left no room for delay. Earth is summoned to the Galactic Council. Immediate presence required at the Celestial Spire. Charges: unauthorized development of faster-than-light technology. Failure to appear will result in sanctions. James Walker read the message twice. His face stayed calm, but his mind raced. He knew this day would come. Ever since Earth scientists had cracked FTL travel on their own, the Federation had gone quiet. That silence was never a good sign. He stood at the window of the Earth Diplomatic Command in New Geneva, watching the sun rise. The sky looked peaceful, but far above, politics were stirring. A soft knock broke the silence. "Come in," James said. His aide, Mira Chen, stepped inside. Young, sharp, and serious, she carried a tablet in one hand and a worried look in the other. "They've scheduled the hearing for 2 days from now. We're to arrive at the Celestial Spire within 36 hours. James nodded. "Prep the shuttle. Just the essentials. No escorts." Mira hesitated. "Are you sure? This isn't just a meeting. They're accusing us of breaking galactic law." "We're not going to war, Mira. We're going to talk." He paused. "But yes, this will be more than just words." 12 hours later, James and his small team boarded the diplomatic shuttle Verity. Its polished silver hull gleamed under the hangar lights. A blue Earth flag was painted near the bridge window, a quiet symbol of pride. The journey through slipspace was smooth but silent. No one spoke much. Even Mira, usually full of questions, stayed quiet, reviewing council protocols. James sat alone in the rear cabin, eyes closed, hands folded. He wasn't afraid, but he was preparing. The Celestial Spire came into view as they exited slipspace. It hung in orbit like a giant spear piercing the stars, miles long and shaped like a spiraled tower. The station was a monument to alien design, graceful and cold. Shuttles of every shape and color flew around it, ferrying dignitaries from across the galaxy. The Verity looked small next to them, but James didn't care about size. He cared about presence. Docking clearance was granted without delay. As the ship settled into its hangar, Mira glanced at James. "Last chance to back out," she said, trying to smile. He smiled back, just a little. Now would be a strange time to get shy. They stepped out into the alien structure. The docking bay was massive, metallic walls, glowing lights, languages scrolling across the screens in dozens of scripts. Tall guards in sleek armor watched silently. No one greeted them. No one had to. They were expected, but not welcomed. As they walked down the corridor toward their quarters, James caught a glimpse of other delegates. Long limbs, scales, feathers, metallic skin, species from every corner of the galaxy. All watching, all whispering. Mira leaned in. "They don't think we belong here." James nodded. "They'll find out soon enough." The door to their assigned chambers slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, everything was perfect. Too perfect. No warmth, no welcome. James sat down at the central table. Mira placed the briefing file in front of him. He didn't open it. He looked up at her. "This isn't a trial," he said quietly. "It's a test. Let's make sure we're the ones writing the questions." Mira didn't reply, but her eyes lit up. The fear wasn't gone, but it had somewhere to go now, somewhere to stand. Outside their window, the stars spun slowly. Somewhere deep inside the spire, the council was waiting, and so was James. The council chamber was massive. James Walker had seen images before, but standing in it was different. The dome stretched over 200 meters across, held up by beams of glowing crystal. In the center was a floating platform, the speaker's podium, surrounded by hundreds of rising tiers, each one a seat for a different species in the Galactic Council. The air inside was cool, still, and heavy with judgment. James stood near the center of the floor with Mira and 2 other delegates from Earth. Their presence felt small, almost like they didn't belong. But James didn't shrink from it. He stood tall, hands at his sides, expression calm. A deep hum rang through the chamber. Lights shifted. The council was now in session. A voice echoed from above, smooth, mechanical, yet alive. Let the record show that Earth Sol system has appeared before the Galactic Council as summoned. Across the tiers, faces turned toward them, some curious, some annoyed, some amused. James kept his eyes forward. A tall, silver-skinned being rose from his seat, high above the rest. His long arms folded neatly behind his back. His eyes were sharp and yellow. His voice filled the space without effort. Counselor Virix, then of the Drevik species, speaks. So this was him. James had read the files. Virix had been a counselor for over a century. Known for his logic, feared for his cold decisions. He was powerful, and he had made Earth his target. "We welcome the humans," Virix said. The words were polite. The tone was not. "You stand accused of violating Interstellar Treaty 7. You have developed faster than light travel independently, bypassing the safeguards of the Federation." The chamber grew still. "This technology," Virix continued, "is not just forbidden to young species. It is dangerous. Without guidance, your kind could disrupt entire systems, warp fields, planetary gravity, temporal distortions. You could cause war without even meaning to." He paused, letting the weight of his words hang. Earth was invited into this council as a learning species, not an equal. You were not ready to ascend. And now you threaten the balance of this galaxy. Murmurs spread through the tiers. Mira shifted slightly beside James, but he didn't react. He waited. Virix stepped back. His final words struck deep. "We are not here to debate. We are here to decide your future." Then silence. James took a slow breath. He walked forward to the response platform. Lights followed him. He looked around, not up, not down. Eye level with every alien gaze. "I am James Walker, envoy of Earth," he said clearly. "And I will speak when the council allows." A pause. Then the mechanical voice returned. "Permission granted. Speak briefly." James looked directly at Virix. "You accuse us of breaking a law we never agreed to. You say we're not ready, because we didn't wait for your approval. But Earth has never been built on waiting. We've faced extinction, war, hunger, and we survived. We moved forward. We made mistakes, but we kept moving." He turned his gaze to the rest of the chamber. "We developed FTL not to threaten, but to explore, to learn. And yes, to prove we can stand here not as children, but as equals." Whispers erupted across the chamber. Some angry, some impressed. Virix stood again. His voice was colder now. "That is not your choice to make." James didn't blink. "You're right," he said. "It's not a choice. It's a fact." Silence again. Then the mechanical voice spoke. "The hearing will continue. Further statements will be accepted tomorrow at second cycle. Earth's position has been noted." The lights dimmed. The chamber began to empty. James turned and walked back to his delegation. Mira leaned in, voice low. "That wasn't what they expected." James gave a faint smile. "Good." As they left the chamber, hundreds of alien eyes followed them. Some watched with scorn, some with new interest. The battle hadn't begun with ships or weapons. It had begun with words. And Earth had just spoken its first. The halls of the Celestial Spire were never quiet. Voices in a dozen languages echoed from walls lined with glowing panels. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy moved between meetings, discussions, and closed-door alliances. But when James Walker and his team stepped out of the council chamber, the chatter grew quieter. Eyes turned. Conversations paused. The humans were no longer invisible. Mira walked beside James, holding her tablet tight. Her voice was low, words spreading fast. "Some of the envoys are calling your response arrogant, others, impressed." James didn't slow his pace. "Let them talk. That's what they do best." They reached the private lounge reserved for Earth's delegation. It was small but secure. The lights inside adjusted automatically to human preference. As the door closed behind them, the tension dropped slightly. The third member of their team, Dr. Leo Narang, stood from the desk. A physicist and political analyst, he had been monitoring the council's chatter in real time. You made waves, Leo said, not smiling. A Drevik representative is pushing for a full restriction on Earth's travel beyond its system. They want to lock us down. James removed his jacket and sat. Of course they do. Virex wants a show of power. He'll need to convince the others we're dangerous. Leo tapped his screen. That's the thing. Not all of them agree. The Solari envoy sent a private message. They want to meet. Mira raised an eyebrow. Solari? They're neutral. Why reach out now? Because, James said, we showed them something different. We didn't grovel. We didn't threaten. We stood our ground. He leaned forward, voice firm. We weren't asking for a seat at their table. We pulled out a chair. Later that cycle, James walked alone through the observation ring. A long, curved hallway with full glass walls that showed the stars in every direction. Beyond the glass, distant suns burned quietly. A cargo ship from the Varnic system passed by, slow and graceful like a whale in the dark. James stopped and watched. He thought of Earth, small, scarred, still recovering from centuries of struggle, but strong, and now noticed. Footsteps echoed behind him. He turned. Counselor Virex stood at a distance, hands folded behind his back. He didn't speak at first, just stared at the stars. Then, without looking at James, he said, "Do you know how many species have stood where you stand now?" James didn't answer. Virex continued. 13. All of them confident, all of them proud. 5 were humbled. 4 were absorbed. 4 no longer exist. James kept his voice calm. Is that a warning? No, Virex said. It is history. He turned to face James fully now. You've come far, but speed is not strength, and words are not power. James met his gaze. Sometimes, he said, they're stronger. Virex's expression didn't change, but his silence said enough. He walked away. James stood alone again, watching the stars. Back in their quarters, Mira was studying reports. Some of the smaller worlds are watching us now. We're becoming interesting. Leo looked up from his screen. That's not always a good thing. No, James agreed. But it's better than being ignored. He looked out the window toward the council tower at the heart of the spire. They want to decide our future, but they don't know who we are. He turned back to them. Tomorrow we show them. The morning cycle came without sound. No alarms, no announcements. Just the soft hum of systems running deep within the walls of the celestial spire. James Walker stood in the private garden near Earth's quarters. The garden was artificial, metal trees with glowing leaves, synthetic grass that never wilted. But it was peaceful. In a place built for control, it was the only space that felt still. He stood there alone, breathing slowly. Not thinking, just waiting. Behind him, the door slid open. Mira stepped into the garden, holding a warm mug of Sint tea. You've been out here for a while, she said gently. James didn't turn around. I needed the silence. She walked beside him and handed him the mug. He nodded in thanks and took a sip. Mira looked up at the fake sky. Tomorrow's vote. They're already predicting the outcome. James raised an eyebrow. And, not good. Most lean toward sanctioning Earth. Some even want to ban us from slipspace lanes. James nodded. I expected that. Mira hesitated. What if we lose? He finally looked at her. Then, we lose. But not because we were silent. Inside the chamber later, James sat at the desk, a blank data slate in front of him. Leo was pacing nearby. You're really not going to write anything down? He asked. James tapped the slate once, just enough to turn the screen on. It glowed, then went dark again. No, if I write it, I'll overthink it. This isn't a lecture. It's a message. Leo frowned. But the council expects structure, protocol. They expect fear. James interrupted. Or apology. Or a deal. He looked up, calm and firm. I'm not giving them any of that. That evening, James asked to be left alone. He returned to the observation ring. Fewer delegates were around now. Most were preparing for tomorrow's final session. James moved to the same spot where he had spoken with Virex the day before. This time, the stars felt closer. He thought about Earth, Not the cities or the science, but the people, farmers, teachers, engineers, children running in parks, artists painting in silence, soldiers standing guard, dreamers building things no one believed possible. He thought of the pain Earth had endured, climate disasters, wars, collapses, and how, again and again, people stood up and tried again. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it never stopped. He smiled to himself, because he finally knew the word. The next morning, Mira entered the lounge, and found James already dressed, standing with his hands clasped behind his back. He turned to her and spoke quietly. "I'm ready." She nodded. "I hope the council is." As they made their way back to the grand chamber, the halls felt colder. The council was waiting. So was the galaxy. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council glowed with a deep blue light. It meant the session was in final phase, judgment assembly, the last step before a council vote. Every delegate was present. The upper tiers were full, hundreds of species, each seated in quiet anticipation. They watched the center of the chamber, where James Walker stood once again on the response platform. Mira and Leo stood just behind him. Neither spoke, neither needed to. The mechanical voice of the chamber filled the air. Final hearing regarding the actions of Earth's Sol system. Allegation: unauthorized development and deployment of independent faster-than-light travel. A pause. Earth has been granted one final address. Then the council shall speak. Councilor Virex. Thawne rose from his seat. His presence was tall and sharp. His words delivered with precision. "The humans believe they are ready," he said. "But what they have shown is recklessness. They build without permission. They move without guidance. They break rules meant to protect life across entire sectors." He turned slowly, facing the chamber. "This is not about fear. It is about order. If Earth is not corrected now, others will follow their path. Chaos will grow. War may return to the stars." He looked down at James. "You speak of equality, but act in defiance. You ask for a seat, but bring no respect." He sat. The chamber stayed quiet. The mechanical voice returned. "Earth may now respond." James stepped forward. The light shifted to him. He looked around, scanning the alien faces. Some glared, some waited. A few looked curious. He spoke clearly. "We understand your fear." The room stilled. "You see what we've done, and you think we're a threat. But let me tell you what Earth really is." He paused. "We are survivors. We've lived through our own near destruction. We've made terrible mistakes, and we've learned from them. We didn't create FTL to run. We built it to reach out, to connect, to explore. We didn't wait for permission because no one ever gave it. We moved forward because we had to." His voice stayed even, measured, calm. "You say we're not ready, but readiness isn't something given. It's proven." James stopped speaking. Silence followed. Then he smiled, faintly, and leaned slightly forward. "And now I'll give you our answer." All eyes locked onto him. Just one word. The chamber felt like it wasn't breathing. James looked directly at Councilor Virex. Then he said it. "Stand." He stepped back. Nothing else. Mira's eyes widened slightly. Leo didn't move at all. The chamber remained silent. Then murmurs. Quiet at first. Then rising. Confusion. Shock. Thought. Virex sat frozen. His fingers twitched, but he said nothing. James turned and walked away from the platform. No explanation. No defense. Only the word. "Stand." Earth's reply. A word that meant, "We will not sit beneath you. We will not kneel. We will not beg. We will rise, and we will remain." James Walker didn't look back. As he walked off the platform, the council chamber buzzed behind him. Whispers in dozens of languages filled the air. Sharp clicks, low hums, metallic tones. Every species was talking. Every delegate was trying to make sense of what just happened. But James didn't speak. He didn't need to. Mira and Leo followed him through the long hallway leading away from the chamber. Inside the elevator pod, the silence stayed. It wasn't until they reached their quarters that Mira finally broke it. She turned to James wide-eyed. "That's it? That's all you were going to say?" James sat down calmly. Yes, Leo frowned. One word, James. Just one. What if they take it as disrespect? James looked at them both, his voice steady. They were never going to hear us through speeches. Virix made that clear. So I gave them something they couldn't ignore. Something simple, something true. He leaned back in the chair. Stand means everything. It means we're not asking. It means we're not afraid. It means we are ready, whether they like it or not. Mira folded her arms. And what if they vote against us anyway? Then they do, James said. But the galaxy heard us. That's what matters. Back in the council chamber, chaos was growing. Delegates argued in private. Some demanded a vote immediately. Others called for delay. The Solari and the Varun supported Earth's claim. The Dravik and the Polaxians stood firm against it. Virix said nothing. Not since James's word. He sat in silence, staring at the platform where James had spoken. Behind his stillness, something had shifted. He had expected fear. He had expected a desperate plea. He had prepared to crush Earth's last hope. Instead, he had been met with one calm word. A word that held no panic. A word that held power. James watched the news feeds in his quarters. Even outside the council, the word was spreading. On Solari stations, anchors repeated it with curiosity. On human channels, it was already being praised. Stand, the headlines read. Earth refuses to bow. A new voice in the stars. Mira stood behind him, watching one of the screens. This wasn't just a reply, she said. It was a message to every species watching. James nodded. Exactly. That night James walked alone again through the garden corridor. Stars glowed beyond the glass. Silent, distant. A soft voice broke the quiet. You surprised us all. James turned. It was Counselor Yara of the Solari. A tall, graceful species with translucent skin that shimmered like moonlight. She studied him with calm, curious eyes. I've seen 100 worlds come through this station, she said. Most either beg or threaten. You did neither. James replied. Because we don't need permission to be who we are. Yara smiled softly. Many of us are watching closely now. Some of us are ready for new voices. Be careful. New voices often carry great weight. She turned and left. James looked out the window again. He didn't feel victorious. He felt ready. The final vote came 12 hours later. The council chamber was quiet again, but not with calm. This time it was heavy with tension. The air was thicker than before. Eyes were sharper. No one smiled. The mechanical voice of the spire announced the beginning of the session. Judgment session. Delegates of the Galactic Council will now vote on sanctions against Earth. One by one, species raised their symbols of judgment. Lighted discs, spoken codes, biometric pulses. Each vote was recorded instantly. James Walker didn't speak. He sat in the observation gallery, watching the process in silence. Mira sat beside him. Leo was behind them, arms crossed tightly. James leaned forward slightly. Eyes locked on the glowing display as votes were tallied. Red for sanction, blue for alliance, gray for abstain. It was close, much closer than anyone had predicted. Then came the final vote. The Solari cast their token. Blue, the chamber flickered. A long pause followed. Then the verdict appeared on the screen in clear, simple text. Sanctions rejected. No action taken against Earth. Earth had not only avoided punishment, it had stood. The council dismissed quickly. Delegates whispered as they left, some glancing at the humans with new expressions. No longer amusement, no longer doubt, curiosity, respect, even concern. James stood slowly, feeling the weight of what had happened. Mira exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. We made it. Leo blinked at the screen, stunned. They didn't just spare us. A third of them are calling for Earth to be given full diplomatic voice. James nodded once. That's the beginning. Later in their quarters, Mira poured a drink and handed it to James. To the man who said one word and shook the galaxy. James took the glass, smiling slightly. I didn't shake it, he said. I reminded them we exist. Leo chuckled. Well, now they know. A soft chime came from the wall console. A message. James tapped the screen. Message. From Counselor Virex Thon. Subject. No words needed. James read it once. Just one sentence. You stood. Let's see how long you can hold. He closed the message and turned to Mira and Leo. He's not done with us. Mira shrugged. Let him try. We're not leaving. James looked out the window. The stars beyond the glass didn't seem so distant anymore. They weren't enemies. They weren't masters. They were the next step. Across the galaxy, in distant systems and remote colonies, beings spoke a new name with interest. Earth. No longer the silent planet on the edge. Now a voice in the council. A presence among the stars. A species that stood,